Mary finally reached a breaking point. Her grades had plummeted so much that she was on the verge of failing an important class, and her academic advisor scheduled a meeting to discuss her declining performance. Feeling trapped and overwhelmed, she confided in Sarah about her letter-writing obsession. "It's just that I can't stop writing to him," Mary admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah was shocked but listened patiently, realizing the depth of her friend's emotional attachment to David. "Mary, you need to prioritize yourself and your future. You have to put these letters aside, even if just for a while," Sarah urged her gently. Her friend's words lingered in Mary's mind, sparking the awareness that her actions were harming her future more than she had acknowledged. That night, Mary faced her hardest decision yet, to choose between her love letters and her education. She stared at the stack of letters she had written, each one a piece of her heart laid bare. She thought about David, about her dreams of a relationship with him, and about her studies slipping through her fingers. Her dreams of graduating with honors and making her family proud were now in jeopardy, and it was because she had let her feelings control her life. Determined to regain control, she made a difficult choice. She would put the letters away and focus on her grades. With a heavy heart, she tucked the letters into a drawer, hoping that, by letting go of her romantic daydreams, she could salvage what was left of her academic future. The next morning, Mary woke up with a sense of both relief and unease. She avoided looking at the drawer where her letters were hidden, instead opening her textbooks for the first time in days. Though it was difficult to concentrate, she reminded herself that each page she read brought her closer to catching up on missed work. In the back of her mind, however, David's face still lingered. Her fingers itched to write to him, but she resisted, focusing on the small steps she needed to take to get back on track. As she immersed herself in her studies, she felt the beginning of a return to her old self, a student determined to succeed. The day felt like a personal triumph, but Mary's thoughts kept drifting to the letters she'd left behind. Part of her wondered if David might have noticed her recent absence in class discussions, but she quickly pushed the thought aside. She knew that, to rebuild her academic standing, she had to distance herself from the world of fantasy she'd created. That evening, as she finished her coursework without once turning to her letters, a newfound sense of strength filled her. She realized she could reclaim her life if she kept this up, and for the first time in weeks, she went to bed without a single letter written. Determined to make up for lost time, Mary joined a study group that she had previously neglected. Her classmates, initially surprised to see her, welcomed her back, and she quickly noticed how much she had missed being part of the group. One of her friends, Kate, asked, "Where have you been, Mary? We were worried about you." She offered a vague response, choosing not to explain the full story, but assured them she was ready to focus. For the first time in weeks, Mary felt like she belonged again. She actively participated in discussions, realizing that she had missed the camaraderie and the motivation she found in studying with others. As they reviewed notes together, Mary saw the benefits of re-engaging with her classmates. They offered fresh perspectives and support, something she had been missing during her period of isolation. Her notes filled up quickly, and for the first time in a long while, she was excited about her studies again. It wasn't easy resisting the pull of her letters, but with each page of notes and each hour spent with her classmates, she felt her focus returning. The simple joy of understanding her coursework and preparing for exams reinforced her decision. She knew that this path, though difficult, was the right one for her future. Despite her resolve, the temptation to write a letter resurfaced one evening when she saw David laughing with friends in the campus cafe. Watching him, she felt the old, familiar urge to capture her emotions on paper. The thought of penning her admiration, of imagining what life could be like if he reciprocated her feelings, tugged at her heart. Mary felt herself slipping, caught between her newfound dedication to her studies and the yearning that still lingered. She wrestled with herself, torn between picking up her pen and staying committed to her promise. In a moment of clarity, Mary closed her eyes and reminded herself of the consequences of her past choices. She thought of her professor's disappointment, her failing grades, and the dreams she nearly lost. The pain of those memories was enough to stop her, at least for that night. She pulled herself together, set her mind on her goals, and forced herself to walk away from the scene. She knew it wouldn't be easy to ignore the pull, but each time she did, her resolve strengthened. With a heavy heart but a determined mind, Mary reminded herself that some dreams are worth letting go to preserve something even more precious, her future. As Mary delved deeper into her studies, the results began to show. Her professors noticed her renewed commitment and, impressed by her progress, offered extra credit assignments to help her catch up. Each completed assignment boosted her confidence, and she felt the joy of accomplishment returning to her life. Mary threw herself wholeheartedly into her work, determined to rebuild her academic record. With each lecture, each study session, and each late night spent on assignments rather than letters, she grew closer to regaining the standing she had lost. Her efforts paid off as her grades improved with every passing week. Her professors praised her, and her friends began to see the Mary they once knew, the focused and determined student. Her relationship with her studies felt like a reunion with an old friend, and she realized how much she had missed this sense of purpose. Although her heart still ached for David, she found a deeper fulfillment in her achievements. Her future, once on the brink of ruin, now held the promise of success once again. Mary began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could build a life that made her proud. One evening, after a particularly grueling study session, Mary returned to her dorm exhausted but content. Sarah, noticing her friend's transformation, suggested they take a break. "Let's go out tonight." "You deserve it," Sarah said, giving Mary a playful nudge. Reluctant at first, Mary eventually agreed. As they sat at a small cafe off campus, laughing and enjoying the evening, Mary felt a sense of relief. It had been so long since she'd done anything other than obsess over letters or worry about her grades. Sarah was quick to acknowledge the shift, commending Mary for her renewed focus. "You've really come a long way," she said warmly, making Mary realize just how much she had changed since letting go of her letters. In that moment, Mary decided to confide in Sarah further, sharing the full story of her letters to David and her struggle to focus on school. Sarah listened intently, offering advice without judgment. "You're stronger than you think, Mary," Sarah encouraged. "And remember, if David was really meant for you, it wouldn't require you to sacrifice your dreams." The words struck Mary deeply. She realized that if her feelings for David were truly meant to flourish, they could do so without derailing her ambitions. That night, Mary resolved to cherish her dreams more than fleeting fantasies. The love and support from her friends, especially Sarah, became a source of strength as she continued on her journey to balance her heart and her future. One day, while studying in the library, Mary's heart skipped a beat when she spotted David browsing the shelves nearby. She felt a familiar pang of longing but quickly reminded herself of the decision she'd made. As she tried to refocus on her textbook, David noticed her and walked over. "Hey, Mary. Haven't seen you around much. How have you been?" he asked, flashing his easygoing smile. Mary's cheeks flushed as she gathered her thoughts. For a moment, she felt the old desire to open up to him, to share the words she'd so carefully crafted in her letters. But instead, she simply replied, "I've been busy with classes. Trying to stay on track." David seemed genuinely interested, asking her about her studies and even sharing some of his own academic struggles. In that moment, Mary realized that she had idealized him in her mind, creating a fantasy that was far from reality. He was just a fellow student, focused on his own path and challenges. As they talked, Mary saw him for who he truly was, and the overwhelming passion she once felt began to fade. It wasn't that her feelings disappeared, but they softened into something manageable, something she could acknowledge without losing herself. She returned to her studies that day feeling lighter, knowing she had found the balance she'd been seeking for so long. Following her conversation with David, Mary felt a profound sense of relief. She
could now see her admiration for him with new clarity. She realized that her obsession had been more about escape and fantasy than genuine love. She had built an idealized world around him as a way to avoid the pressures and responsibilities of university life. This revelation shifted something within her, allowing her to see both her life and her studies with fresh eyes. It wasn't that her feelings had been invalid, they were simply misplaced, blown out of proportion by the loneliness and stress she had been experiencing. With this new perspective, Mary threw herself fully into her academic goals, no longer held back by distractions. Her performance continued to improve, and she even began enjoying the process of studying, knowing that each accomplishment was a testament to her resilience. Her friends and professors noticed the change, applauding her determination. As her confidence grew, Mary felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was finally at peace, not only with her past choices but also with the path she was forging ahead. The letters, once her only solace, had become a distant memory, and in their place stood the dreams she had chosen to reclaim. As Mary continued mentoring other students, she often found herself reflecting on her own journey. She thought back to the months she had spent obsessing over David, pouring all her hopes and dreams into letters that would never be read. It seemed like a distant memory now, but she couldn't deny that it had been an essential part of her growth. Every challenge, every mistake, and every lesson learned had shaped her into the person she was becoming. She began to appreciate the journey, recognizing that her struggles had taught her resilience, patience, and self-worth. One evening, while working on an article about self-reflection for the campus newspaper, Mary realized just how far she had come. She wrote about the importance of facing one's own shortcomings and embracing change, drawing inspiration from her own experiences. Her article struck a chord with her readers, receiving heartfelt responses from students who felt seen and understood. Mary was touched by the impact her words had made, further cementing her purpose in journalism. In helping others through her writing, she found healing, and for the first time, she was at peace with her past. One evening, feeling a surge of inspiration, Mary decided to write one last letter, but this time, it would be addressed to herself. She sat down at her desk, pen in hand, and poured her heart out on the page. She wrote about the young woman she had been, lost and confused, and the strong, determined person she had become. She forgave herself for the mistakes she had made, expressing gratitude for the lessons they had taught her. Dear Mary, she began, thank you for not giving up. Thank you for choosing yourself. You've come so far, and I'm so proud of you. Writing this letter was cathartic, and Mary felt a sense of closure she hadn't realized she needed. This was her final goodbye to the insecurities and doubts that had once held her back. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it away in her drawer, knowing she would always keep it as a reminder of her resilience. With this newfound clarity, she felt ready to face any challenges that lay ahead. She had written countless letters in the past, but this one, a letter of self-love and acceptance, was by far the most meaningful. Graduation day arrived sooner than Mary had expected, and as she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, a rush of emotions filled her heart. The girl who had once been lost in daydreams and letters was now a confident young woman, ready to take on the world. Her friends and family cheered, and she saw Sarah smiling proudly in the crowd. Mary had made it, not just through her academic journey, but through a personal transformation that had forever changed her life. As she stood on that stage, she realized that she was no longer defined by her past, but by the strength and determination that had carried her forward. After the ceremony, Mary gathered with her friends and family, celebrating not just her academic achievements, but the journey she had taken to get there. She felt a profound sense of gratitude for every challenge, every friendship, and every lesson that had led her to this moment. As she looked out at the future before her, she knew she was ready. Her dreams of journalism awaited, and she was prepared to work hard, stay true to herself, and make a difference in the world. With a heart full of hope and determination, Mary took her first steps into a future she had built on her own terms, embracing every possibility ahead.